Okay, so my name is Hunter. I'm here with Lawrence and Raj. We have got our Module 6 group project here ready for Disney in Japan and their marketing efforts that way. So we will go ahead and just go get started. I'm going to be taking the first couple slides here. So um, as an introduction into Disney, the corporation itself, Disney owns and operates amusement parks all around the world. They also produce movies, both animated and live action. They have their hands in music, TV shows, merchandise, etc. They've got their hands in a lot of different things there. They do a lot of they have a lot of different, I guess, products. So in terms of specifically with the Japanese markets, Disney moved into the country of Japan through, among other ventures, through opening Tokyo Disneyland, through the foreign direct investment that they put into the country. Excuse me. They opened the Walt Disney Company Japan, which was founded in 1959. The country is based in Tokyo, Japan, and it operates as a subsidiary to its parent company, the Walt Disney Company. So for assistance with the actual market of Japan, since it was kind of a difficult market to get into, Disney had the help of the Oriental Land Company, OLC, to help them with operating and running the day-to-day of the Tokyo Disneyland theme park. So the next slide here talks just a little bit about the Oriental Land Company, because they were necessary, this company, in order to move into the country of Japan, because it was so difficult. So it says here that the Walt Disney Company itself actually has no ownership at all of Tokyo Disneyland. Instead, the way that it's operated is that the Oriental Land Company, excuse that little pop-up there, the Oriental Land Company owns and operates and pays royalty and licensing fees to the Walt Disney Company. So that's kind of their mode of entry. We'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later, but that's what the Oriental Land Company does. While Walt Disney, the company, does not have any ownership stake here, the financial results and strategy from OLC directly impacts the fees that Disney will receive and how the brand is marketed in Japan. So they have a lot of say in what's done. Moving into the country of Japan itself as an assessment, Japan does have the world's third largest economy. Its market, like I mentioned, has been known to be one that is difficult to enter, so it kind of speaks to the exclusivity there. The markets, the manufacturers that live in Japan prefer to do business and operate with other Japanese-based companies. Again, why Disney maybe had some struggles moving into the country. The currency risk score that was found through the EIU has worsened from 26 to 28 per the last assessment, but the overall risk rating still remains at an A, meaning that there is low prospects in Japan for a financial crisis, and meaning that it's a good country to do business in. So I'll go ahead and turn the time over to Raj. He's going to go over some of our next slides. Oops, you there, Raj?
Oh, sorry. My name is Raj, and I'm going to go over the Japanese union ethics. So the labor union law of 1949 states that the workers have the right to organize. Japanese law does not require any employer to enter into a written employment contract upon hiring any employee. Japanese law also guarantees the right of its labor unions to carry out their activities. Unionism has mostly declined in Japan over the past 2 decades. The general downward trend reflects several factors, including industrial restructuring, increase in part-time work and service jobs, and lastly, by great reluctance by younger workers to participate in unions. Next slide, we're going to talk about Japanese tourism. Japan retained its position as the third largest travel and tourism economy in the world. This assessment, its annual review is taken by the World Travel and Tourism Council every year. And Japan has maintained that position because of the increase of tourism they see almost every year. Due to concerted marketing effort by country's government, tourism in Japan has been surging and is projected to continue on its upward trajectory. I would like to include that this would you will see a higher increase in numbers because the Olympics of 2020, which is taking place in Tokyo. Because of that, you will see the numbers basically spike up. Japan's tourism numbers were up 19% in 2018 to a record of 28.7 million visitors. And like us again, these numbers will change after next year's Olympics. And lastly, tourism would positively affect the attendance to the Disney theme park. Again, bringing back the 2020 Olympics, we know that a lot of visitors, participants, whoever is here mostly for the Olympics, will obviously find time to make sure that they visit Tokyo Disney, which will increase the revenue, will also increase the tourism numbers and attendance Disney will have. And next, we're going to talk about the strategy and mode of entry for Disney. Disney has entered the Japanese market through licensing. Hunter mentioned this in the introduction, how Walt Disney Company has no ownership of the Tokyo parks, Tokyo Disneyland. Instead, the OLC, or Oriental Land Company, owns and operates them and pays royalty and licensing fee to Walt Disney Company. And Disney's strategy for their business in Japan would be in line with the localization strategy. Since they are operating in the vastly different Japanese market with many culture differences, they have needed to adapt their product to align with consumers' taste and preference. One example I would like to include is when I visited Tokyo Disneyland. I've never been to any of the US or the US Disneylands in California and Florida, but when I did visit Shanghai, Paris, and Tokyo, I could see that they are very they cater to the local, meaning even though they keep Disney's image, the rides, the attitude, whether it be costumes and stuff like that, they still speak the language of the country, whether it's Japanese, French, Chinese. Their food menu is very different. You might find one or two that might be similar to the one in California and Florida, but I would say 90% of it is going to be local. So you would see that local strategy they've been using and to cater to the local people, whichever country the Disney is. And then now Lawrence is going to take over for the next few slides.
Yes, so next we're going to talk about our marketing mix. So our 4 Ps, our product, placement, promotion, and price. So as most of us don't know, Disney in Japan is one of the oldest Disneys in Japan after Orlando in California. For the placement, Disney in Japan will stay, it always does everything, well, as we know Japanese, everything stays in Japan, like we were talking about earlier. So everything there is exclusive to Japan. With promotion, Disney does things differently. So with Disney, they do the marketing through internet, social media, TV, and advertisement. They always cater to the different types of local places. So the Disney in Florida will be different from the Disney in Japan. They like to make sure that they keep everything, not all the same, but they want to keep everything catered to what country they're in. And the price for Disney has always been the same. There's always set price. It has never changed, and they don't plan on changing it at any time. Whether they make a profit or a loss, they want to make sure that they keep the prices even throughout the countries. And then our next slide, we will look at the insight comparison. So this shows different individualism, uncertainty avoidances, long-term orientation. So this shows the difference between Japan and United States. As we can see, Japan takes over on masculinity and long-term orientation, whereas United States, it's a little bit lower. In the next slide, we'll talk about those differences. So when it comes to uncertainty avoidances, this could be an issue. Disney is very consumer service oriented. So for the workers are a little bit too rigid with the rules, they might shy away from the above and beyond approach. Japan scores very highly in long-term orientation though, as they are very high and strong in centers of tradition. So Japan very much relies on their traditional ways. Japan scores much lower though in the United States for individualism, but highly in masculinity. So in Japan, they're very much as the we attitude, and they like to keep everything, they do everything as one, where sometimes with the United States, everybody likes to break off and do their own different types of things. But Japan also scores with low in indulgence, which means they focus more on activities of substance versus carefree activities. And then we are looking at this could affect some of the attendance in the theme parks. But overall, I mean, Japan really, really focuses on their education versus anything else because they want to make sure everything's good there. And then last but not least, we will talk about our conclusion. So looking at this chart, it goes from 2006 to 2016. As we can see, it's been going up ever since. There's really been no low times or anything like that. So if you go from 2006 from the park and revenue guest, it went from 9,221 to 2016, which is 11,257. So we could definitely see people are still going and still loving this. With this, Disney and Japan's success, and they will continue to be a success, where they're planning on expanding and making parks bigger. I mean, it's just a great venture for them.